Good morning, everyone. We are coming back when the unthinkable happens with my dear friend Edward Siegel and myself. Edward, thank you for being on with me again this month. Why don't you tell a little bit about your success that you're having with Forbes?
Since October of 2020, I have been the senior contributor for leadership strategy for Forbes.com, where I write on a regular basis the good, bad, and sometimes incredibly ugly ways companies and organizations are responding to, managing, and trying to recover from crisis situations. And I just passed the 1.4 million mark of the number of people who have read my stories. So I'm really excited about that. I'm always looking for new stories and new ideas and new story angles. And yesterday I posted actually 3 stories about crisis situations. So I'm not running out of things to write about or to talk about with you. But I encourage people to go to Forbes.com, type in my name, Edward Siegel, and you'll be taken immediately to my page. And I hope you have a chance to read the stories, and if you like, actually subscribe so you can get the stories as I write them almost every day.
Well, I have to say, I subscribe, and you're very prolific. What's interesting is it really is a diversity of the things you talk about, and they're all practical things that if you have a business or even in your life, if you can learn from these big companies, government, individuals, you can learn from their achievements as well as their mistakes. And sometimes the mistakes are a much better lesson than the achievements.
You're absolutely right, and it's always better to learn from the mistakes of somebody else than than for you to make your mistakes. Uh,
you know,
what, However you learn, though, whether it's from your own mistakes or from others, take the lessons to heart, learn, and take steps to make sure you don't make those mistakes or any other mistakes going forward. And also, if people haven't read my book, I urge them to go to my website at publicrelations.com. That's publicrelations.com. And there's information about my book, Crisis Ahead, that was published in 2020. In fact, today a Chinese language edition of the book is being published by a company in Taiwan. So I'm really excited about that as well.
I am so happy for your success. Just so you people know, Edward and I go back a long ways. And when I first read, he sent me the transcript for it so I could write a testimonial. And we had always been trying to figure out how to do something together. And I wrote him back. He didn't know anything about what I was doing when it comes to my certification. I wrote him back. I said, I know how we're working together. And here we are. So I'm thrilled. Okay. Today, we're going to be talking about sustainability, resilience, and safety. And the reason we're talking about it is because those are the 3 focuses of the National Association of Realtors this year. And that is the largest trade organization in the world. And unfortunately, sometimes our businesses are not sustainable, sometimes they're not resilient, and sometimes they're not safe. So what can we do, and how can we handle those crises, whether it's a natural disaster or whether it's some other kind of crisis or some kind of man-made disaster? What can we do to make our businesses more sustainable, more resilient, and more safe? So, Edward, I think when it comes to sustainability, we often think about our personal carbon footprint. We think about using less water, less gas, those sort of things. But when it comes to business, what would you say the most important thing to do when it comes to sustainability is?
Well, it depends on a business. It should be founded in the beginning on a sound financial and professional basis, not on a whim. You don't get up one day and say, I think I'm going to start a new company. You have to have a business plan. You have to have a strategy. You have to have tactics. You need the resources in order to launch your business. And of course, you need a business plan that maps out from beginning to end what the business does, how it's going to do it, and how are you going to be successful. And another issue that I just wrote about yesterday, as a matter of fact, is where do you want to establish your business? I wrote a story about the various best country lists that Forbes has published and other news organizations, U.S. News and World Report, that list the benefits of different countries in terms of their tax structure, regulatory issues, political environment, and so on. Of course, a lot of people who are listening or watching this now, they're not planning on opening up a business overseas. Perhaps they want to do it in their home, their hometown, or their state or the city. But still, you need to do the research and decide where is the best place, where the best country, or city, or state, or county to do your business. Because if you don't pay close attention to these fundamental issues about growth potential and the business, your business plan, if it's not well thought out, it can turn into a crisis sooner rather than later. So in order to be sustainable for your business, you have to think through these really basic fundamentals. Because if you don't, you're not going to be sustainable for too long.
That's for sure. And in addition to that, you need to have not only a business plan, but you need to have an emergency plan. Because when something does happen, whether it's a crisis, whether it's some kind of a natural disaster, or some kind of a man-made disaster, like a pandemic, a lot of businesses are struggling right now. And if you don't have the right kind of plan in place to handle those situations, you're not going to be sustainable. As a matter of fact, FEMA states that 75% of all businesses that do not have a plan and are affected by by some type of a disaster will be out of business in 2 years. Even if they open back up, they won't last 2 years. 75%. So if you have a business or you are wanting to start a business, you get that business plan in place, and then you talk about what happens if something goes wrong. When the unthinkable happens, what are you going to do? And what does that do? Excuse me. That creates resilience, right? When you're prepared, if you have when you have a business plan, you're looking at what you can do to financially, what resources do you need, and how are you going to move forward? What is your 2-year, 5-year plan? The same is true with your emergency plan. And both of them are organic. They have to be kept up to date. You need to bring, if this is not your forte, you should bring in some kind of a professional to make that happen. Because resilience is very important. Don't you think, Edward?
Yes, you need to keep your plan up to date because if you have a current business plan, but if your crisis management plan is not in sync with the latest threats and your plans to recover from a crisis, then that's going to make it much harder to recover from a crisis. It's also important to pay close attention to the good, bad, and ugly ways others are dealing with a crisis and become a student of crisis management. That's why I wrote my book on Crisis Ahead. That's why I'm happy to be a contributor for Forbes.com. You need to pay attention on a regular basis about how other companies and high-profile individuals are responding to a crisis. Take the lessons to heart, and as necessary, update your business plan and your crisis management plan to account for these lessons that you learn along the way.
Well, I think it's really important that as business leaders, we share that information. We share with our community. We become a part of our community. And when we're sharing, we're also highlighting that we are a go-to person for information. And what is that going to do? That's going to attract others to your business. So I think it's really, once you become sustainable and resilient and safe for crises or disasters, it's important that we share that information. Like, that's why Edward's book is so valuable. I mean, it really is one of those books you want to put on your shelf if you're an owner of some type of business, because you can go back to it. If something starts to happen, you can go back to it and say, okay, this company did it this way, I'm going to do it that way. Or, oh, I definitely don't want to do it that way. And the same is true when you really learn about how to be prepared and how to be resilient for disasters and other types of crises. So being able to share that knowledge, what does that do? That brings your level up. You become the hero in your community, whatever that community looks like. Edward, what do you think about do you talk about safety much in your articles in your book?
Safety in terms of what?
Just like safety of keeping your business together. Okay, let's talk about some of the mass shooting or the shootings that have happened in businesses. Have you done any articles or anything about that?
Yes, safety is really important in crisis situations, and it really depends on the crisis and what the safety issue is. For example, if it's a mass shooting, you need to take steps ahead of time to figure out what you were going to do and who was going to do it. In documented mass shootings, though, the default is to always defer to the local law enforcement officials or authorities. Turn it over to them, let them run the show, and just follow their directions. Sometimes you're dealing with a hostage situation. In fact, there was a rabbi at a congregation synagogue in Texas near Dallas Fort Worth this last Saturday, and he and several members of his congregation were taken hostage for several hours, 10 or 11 hours, I believe. And it turns out that he and his fellow congregants were able to escape the person who had taken them hostage because he and members of his congregation had already received training for exactly that kind of scenario, training that was provided by the FBI, the B'nai B'rith. There's a private organization that I wrote about that provided that training. So that's a great current example of the importance when it comes to safety. Get the training you need for the situations. It might seem a far-fetched situation. It might be something, oh my God, that would never happen to me. But the Crisis Management Hall of Fame is filled with examples of companies and organizations who one day said, this is never going to happen to me. And the next day, it happens to them. So that's
Exactly.
an important lesson. It's a basis of your great work, of your new book, of my work and my columns. Don't assume a crisis is not going to happen to you. Assume that it's a matter of when, not if, that crisis is going to happen. And the sooner and the better you're prepared for that, whether it's safety or resiliency or anything else, you're going to be in a much better shape. Your company will be in a better shape, and you'll be able to bounce back a lot faster as well.
I'm really glad you brought up the hostage situation because I actually posted about that on my social media today. I think it's a really good example of, yeah, we don't think it's going to happen to us. But personally, I know 3 people that have been, one of them was a false alarm, thank God, but the other 2 were real mass shooters. And by the way, there's a definition for what creates a mass shooting. And there's actually some organizations that call it 3 killings or more, not counting the shooter. And the FBI uses 4. So when we're talking about a mass shooting, that's what we're talking about. And it's very important that you can go to my new book, When the Unthinkable Happens, Be Prepared, Be Ready. And I talk about what you need to do. But to give you an idea, if you're just an individual, when you walk into a restaurant or a movie theater or a store and the hair in the back of your head goes up, pay attention to that. Look around and see where the other exit is so that you know if something happens where you can escape to. If you're in a department store, and this is what happened to my one friend, look kind of around to where a storage room is or where a door is that you could jump into. I mean, it takes 5 seconds to look around and say, okay, if something happens, this is where I'm going to go. And by doing that, and then as a business owner, take a look at your building itself and what can you do to keep your staff and your team safe? And what can you do to help kind of eliminate people coming in? There's many stores where you can't barricade them, otherwise you never have any customers. But what can you do? And then have the training. Almost every police department now has some kind of shooting training that you can get. So look into that, get it for your employees, get it for your family, so that you know what to do. Because this rabbi saved his life as well as the other 3 hostages. It was a pretty amazing story. So I think being safe today is a whole different ballgame. 2 of them, so I think it's 43.3% of all shootings, mass shootings, happen in commercial buildings. And 20 point something percent are in schools, which is very scary. That's like 70% of all mass shootings are either commercial, where we're out and about all the time, or schools. So we really need to pay attention to this. And it's becoming worse and worse and worse. I think this year we're already on record to do more than we did last year, which is unheard of. I don't remember the numbers last year, but it was astronomical. So, well, Edward, I want to talk a little bit about my book, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Okay. When the unthinkable happens, guess where we got the name of our little series that we're doing? Actually, this title came from Edward Siegel. Be prepared, be ready. And it's a small consumer guide for businesses and individuals on how to be prepared. What kind of plans do you need? What do you need? It goes into mindset. It goes into communication. It talks about why it's happening. And it's going to have, I'm adding a chapter to it on sustainability because it's really important that we know what we're doing personally as well as in our businesses to be sustainable. You know, those experts and scientists are now saying that if we don't turn around the greenhouse gases, that by 2030, it may be irreversible. And on top of that, they're saying after we do get it irreversible, it's going to take 25 years to reverse the damage that's already been caused. So this is no longer, oh, that's not going to happen to me. Even I could live to be that old. Uh-oh, Edward went away. I'm sure he'll be back. But anyway, it's very important. So this book is a great tool. I designed it to be not real big. It has good information. And when you get it, you get a bonus that has all the forms and everything. But when the unthinkable happens, it's a great tool. If you have a business and you want to go out and you want to promote to your clients and customers, this is a great gift. Great gift. Here he comes. Here he comes. Hi there, you're back.
I didn't mean to go away. I don't know what happened, but tech happens. So.
Technology. I was interviewing the other day. I was interviewing Leslie Rhoda Smith, the national president for NAR this year, National Association of Realtors, and I get it, and my screen is completely blue. You could see her just fine, but while we were doing it, you could see me. But when I got the final draft of it, it was nothing of me, just blue. So anyway, so Edward, I think this is a really important topic. And what would be your last thoughts on what people should think about when it comes to sustainability, resilience, and safety?
You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your family. You owe it to your company. And frankly, you owe it to the world. I mean, we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. We only have one planet, and we need to take care of it the best way we can. You know, Tip O'Neill, the late great speaker of the House of Representatives, he said, all politics is local. Well, all environments are local. All sustainability is local. If you're just starting your business, look for ways for it to be sustainable as a business, but also sustainable, keeping in mind the impact that your business activities will have on the environment. And you're right, Connie, about we don't have much time left to do the right thing as a world, as a society. Some scientists are saying that we are now in the middle or are about ready to start a mass extinction event. Well, guess who's going to be extinct? Us. We have to take steps immediately. This is not something we can procrastinate and put off later. We have to find ways of being sustainable, of being responsible, and we have to do it now.
I'm going to be doing a whole series on sustainability starting next week, where I'm talking about the different things we can do. And I'm adding a chapter to the book about that because I didn't realize we were that close to extinction, really. I mean, 2030 is only 8 years away. So we don't have time for studies. We don't have time for examination. We only have time to act and act now. So, well, Edward, I love our conversations. I need to tell everybody. So before we started doing this, way back probably 20 years ago, when we were at conferences, we would sit and brainstorm about things. And I love the idea that we have this opportunity to do it in a more formal way and to share our conversations with others so that they can maybe be thought-provoking to them. And maybe we can save some lives, make crisis a little bit better, and make a true difference.
Well, I enjoy working with you on this new project. I hope we can be doing this for a long time to come. And I hope people, frankly, are paying attention to what we're saying. We're not doing this to be entertaining. We're doing this to be educational. And we hope people will take our advice, our counsel, and our guidance to heart and act on the advice that we share with them every month.
We're going to be coming out with the Kindle version of the book, and it'll be announced in the beginning. It's going to be 99 cents. So I will keep you posted. My web, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you'd like to have some more information about how to maybe get this book for your clients or customers, just reach out to me there. And Edward, we will see you again in a month. Who knows? Right. We never know what we're going to talk about until just before we're going to talk.
Take care and good luck on your book.
Thank you.
Sure it'll be a great success.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll be back next month for another topic. Don't know what it is, but we'll figure it out. All right. Bye now.
Bye.